Hello, I am Becca and you are watching Rue's Musings. Today we are talking about forgetting, remembering, and mindfulness. Part of yogic philosophy, probably the biggest way in which we forget, and it's one of the kleshas. The kleshas in the Yoga Sutras are the things that keep us unhappy. I think I've talked about it once before. And the first of the kleshas is avidya. And avidya is ignorance. So the first way that we forget, according to yogic philosophy, and I'm going to talk more specifically about how we forget in our day-to-day lives in a second, but it's important to mention this, that the first way we forget is by forgetting that inherently we are connected to everyone and everything around us. So that when people go into meditation and experience samadhi, there's this blown back awareness of, oh my goodness, I'm not separate. I'm not this body, I'm not my feelings, I'm not my likes and dislikes. I haven't experienced that in terms of meditation and enlightenment, obviously, those types of things, but I think we've all experienced it in moments, profound moments of connection with nature, with music, with art, with people, that there's those moments, right, then you're having a conversation with a friend, and you feel like you're just connected to the pulse of things, where you're in the flow, that we've all experienced that. So I think that that's the first way that we forget, and inherently forget all the time, every moment, that we're not this separate body the way that we perceive that we are. I've been teaching this week about mindfulness. So for a couple of classes I posed the question, what is mindfulness? And people said presence, being in the present moment, realization. And we understand that mindfulness is a positive attribute in our lives, correct? I think that we do. All my classes did. Does anyone not care about mindfulness at all? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Most of you watching this video don't feel that way. So we understand that mindfulness is important. And at the same time, we get caught up in our days, right? We get caught up in our morning ritual. We get caught up in work and work and work and work. We get caught up in our responsibilities and our bills. We get caught up in things. So whole chunks of hours, if not whole chunks of days, pass before we remember that mindfulness is something that we're focusing on. And part of the whole idea of forgetting that I want to illustrate for us is that as human beings, we're designed to forget. So it's one of the ways that the spanda, the pulse, works inside of our lives, that we're supposed to forget. We're supposed to forget about our 3 deep breaths before we take a bite of food, and we're supposed to forget about saying what we're grateful for at night before we fall asleep, and we're supposed to forget about all these little things that we try to remember throughout our day. We're designed that way, right? We're creatures of habit. We all understand that when you're trying to change something, you're 2 hours in and you've all of a sudden forgot whatever it is. And part of the reason we're designed to forget is to make the remembering sweeter, which isn't always the case for me, right? Sometimes remembering isn't sweet. I just feel guilty. Really, I can't remember to smell my food before I shove it in my face? Sometimes I can, I forget. But inside of forgetting, I guess my advice to us is to structure our lives in such a way that mindfulness is important. So we can do that a number of different ways, through discipline, through showing up in a certain way inside of our spiritual practice, inside of rituals of how we do things, how we shower, how we clean our house, how we have intimate conversations with people that we love. And we just check in. So I think that the check-in is really interesting for us to have a way that we kind of, evaluate's not my favorite word, but where we remember to notice how we're living. We can do that in part by the people who we surround ourselves with. We can do that in part by how we spend our time. But I think especially if we're trying to cultivate mindfulness, this is what I notice, that I'm in the career kind of mindfulness, and I still can forget a lot. And I show up in front of these groups of people to teach it, and then I just, forget. We feel disconnected. When I would go to my teacher trainings, typically there were 5 days, and we're doing yoga or studying yoga philosophy for 5 hours every day. And every time inside of these trainings, I was like, wow, it feels really good to do 3 hours of asana a day and to do meditation and do pranayama and breathing. Like, I'm positive right now, I'm positive beyond a shadow of a doubt that this really makes me feel grounded and whole and settled and peaceful. And I know when I get back to my real life, I will bring these practices into my real life. I never made it more than 3 days. I never really even made it to 2 days of keeping those practices in my life, because life happens and I forgot. And I just didn't make it a priority. So I know that we have this rub in our lives, all of us, all the time. And it takes it's a big call to action to say, I'm going to shift where I put my brain power around, do you want to get things done or do you want to be mindful? They can happen together eventually, but they can't, you can't be the best at both of these things right now, usually. Because we need to switch out of our old patterns of needing to look a certain way, blah, 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 all these different things. So mindfulness is important. We're designed to forget. Hopefully the remembering sometimes is sweet. And ultimately, it's also that we remember, according to yogic philosophy, that we're not separate. We're always whole and we're always, always, always connected. Please do share this video with your friends, especially if you think that they could hear these words today. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.